America keeps hitting the jackpot. Another big company with another huge investment in the USA. Apple. Apple, the iPhone people, the iPad people, they make a lot of stuff. $100 billion. Hey, it's not too much to ask, right? $100 billion? Hey, all right. President Trump made this happen with force of personality and also some good business sense and I think a little bit of morality. All of our stuff getting made overseas, it had to switch sooner or later, right? I love that it's coming back. Manufacturing coming back to the United States, and it is a big, big deal.
We're going to be putting a very large tariff on chips and semiconductors, but the good news for companies like Apple is if you're building in the United States or have committed to build, without question committed to build in the United States, there will be no charge. In other words, we're not going to be charging. So a lot of countries, a lot of companies are leaving various other places and they're coming to the United States.
All right, great news. And I love it about Apple because Apple's an interesting company. It's Silicon Valley. It's kind of high design. But I love it. And you know who turned me on to Apple stuff? Rush Limbaugh. He would talk about it all the time on his show, and he, you know, the things he was learning, and sometimes he had a tech problem, and he was all over Apple, and now I am too. They make just incredible devices. Anyway, thank you, Rush, and I thank you to President Trump and Tim Cook for making this happen, and a lot of other money coming America's way. Isn't that nice for a change, right? We were always investing overseas. Now it's coming home. It's beautiful. All right, next, please. You heard about the Fort Stewart, Georgia shooting. At about 11 o'clock this morning, a soldier, we're told, opened fire and shot and wounded 5 other soldiers. The suspect is now in custody. Fortunately, no fatalities. This is the guy they believe pulled the trigger, Cornelius Radford, an Army sergeant. Don't know what his motivation was. We'll keep an eye on it. Fort Stewart, by the way, is kind of near and dear to me. But first, let's hear from the general, the commander of the outfit.
The shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his co-workers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly.
All right, so we'll watch and wait. Fort Stewart, not too far from Savannah, Georgia. It is the home of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, and that is the outfit that I embedded with during the invasion. That's Eric Wesley. He was the executive officer of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, and we went all the way to Baghdad and saw so many things. Their home base, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, is still Fort Stewart, Georgia. I have to say, though, right after it happened, the first thing I thought was terrorism, may or may not be, and may or may not be motivated by radical Islam. We have seen that a lot, especially on military bases. Do you remember the Fort Hood shooting a while back? But an Army officer, an actual doctor, an Army psychiatrist, opened fire, killed 13 people. More recently, there was a mass shooting, actually the worst mass shooting in Washington, D.C. history. That individual right there, Alexis Aaron, had a history of mental health issues, something of a mystery. It was explored. Did this have anything to do with radical Islam? I think there's a bit of a question mark over that one. Chattanooga, Tennessee. This a clear-cut example of terrorism motivated by radical Islam. Pensacola, Florida, another base that I have experience with. I went through flight school there, spent a year on that base, and a flight student actually was the one who opened fire. He was on loan to the Air Force, killed 3 people. Corpus Christi, all of these, we believe, with the possible exception of Aaron Alexis, motivated by radical Islam. And I think we have to be able to say it, okay? That's a lot of victims. And you don't hear all about the victims all that much, and you don't hear, especially when it is radical Islam, it's downplayed for whatever reason, isn't it, right? Nobody likes to talk about it. What do they like to talk about? Oh, if only this was white supremacy. Oh, if only this were skinheads. Then everybody would be happy, especially the previous regime.
We won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism.
The most prominent threat is the threat of white supremacists.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
This is not true. They are all lying. And they had, I believe, the intelligence agencies cook that up to the extent that any intelligence report reflected that. It was made up. It's not true. Radical Islam remains a major threat. And we see signs of it getting, well, it's dangerous. It remains potent. And it's also very potent, the idea that you can't talk about it because you might seem Islamophobic or racist. Screw that. That's what the Brits did, right? They were all worried about appearances. You heard about the rape, the Arab rape scandal over there? It was happening. Everybody knew it, but they were afraid. Even law enforcement was afraid to talk about it because, again, if you're accused of racism or Islamophobia, that's it.
Some scandals are so massive that they're simply hard to believe. But this one is true. As many as 1 million white English children may have been the victims of Muslim rape gangs, better known as grooming gangs, in towns up and down Great Britain. Policy analyst George Igler.
I mean, when you counter an issue that is just so unbelievable, just so outside your frame of reference and understanding, the immediate human reaction is just not want to believe it at all.
Perhaps even harder to believe is that while there have been prosecutions, British authorities have still not stopped this criminal activity.
There's a particular problem involving Pakistani heritage men who target young, vulnerable white English girls. Not my words, but a member of Parliament, Jack Straw, who also said these Pakistani heritage men view white English girls as, quote, easy meat.
But for reasons of political correctness, you couldn't aggressively take on Muslim rape gangs that were preying on British citizens. Is that crazy? Yes, it is. And we can't let this kind of sensitivity infect us over here any more than it already has.
At-risk white English girls, often from broken homes and some as young as 9 years old, were wooed or groomed by teenage Muslim boys called Romeos, and even by groups of Muslim men who hung around school gates. The plan was to make the girl feel important. She was given gifts and drugs, but she was being groomed to be a drug-addicted prostitute.
This is about as horrible as it can get. Some I heard, oh, well, that's a long time ago. They're still living with this, right? And the full scope, scale of this scandal still coming to light. One more.
This is when some shout racism, but here are the facts. Calculations based on convictions show that a British Muslim male is 170 times more likely to be part of a sex grooming gang than a non-Muslim. And there are no recorded instances of non-Muslims doing this to Muslim girls as part of a criminal enterprise. In one local jurisdiction, it was estimated that 6 out of 7 Muslim males either knew about or were part of a grooming gang.
6 out of 7. That is, that's a majority, right? Wow. We have a serious problem in that culture. And another culture where they can't even talk about it. I see it, far lesser extent, mind you, far lesser extent, light years less, but there are overtones, right? Here in New York City, we have a frontrunner for mayor. His name is Zoran Mamdani, and he's charismatic, and he's got a great smile, and he happens to be anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, pro-terrorism, and he lies on his college application saying that he's black when he's really not black. This is kind of crazy stuff, but because folks in the dominant media don't want to appear critical of a person of color, they are refraining from the heavy lifting of political journalism, right? He's getting a free pass from just about everybody, even though he's got radical and totally offensive views to most decent New Yorkers. It's a crazy situation, and we're doing our part, but the dominant media, for them to give this guy just okay, no, we're not going to write about any of this, any of your issues, that's racism in a way, right? There's something very, very evil about the whole thing. And the UK, that was beyond. That'll give people nightmares. All right, next, please.
It should go without saying, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. This is not easy for me. I love this place. I love our mission, and I love our people. But my focus is, and always has been, on us and on doing what's right for the FBI.
Chris Wray, wrapping up his tenure at the FBI, I found this very revealing. His focus has always been and always will be what's best for us at the FBI. Not for America, but for a bureau, for a federal bureau. That's the deep state for you. The deep state is real. Hey, take a guess. What is this place? It's not the CIA. It's not the FBI. It's not the DIA. What is it? They got a lot of stuff. It's the National Security Administration, the NSA. All right. Just one of the, I think, 4 dozen, 3-letter agencies we have. They think they run our lives. And to some extent, they do. The deep state. They sent in the SWAT team to make President Trump and MAGA look bad, didn't they? Right? To make January 6th the worst thing that ever happened in the world. Well, we are on to the deep state. And I think somebody deserves a great big posthumous break. Joseph McCarthy, the senator from Wisconsin. You know, they destroyed him because he was bold enough to call out the rot from within. The rot that he was identifying and trying to root out still infects us to this day.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many. And even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
Well, he's right, because the communists throughout the government and throughout academia, communism and socialism touched all of these guys, all of these bad guys in the deep state. Show me that picture of just about all of them had socialist professors, and especially Brennan, John Brennan, the CIA director, who's in the news big time because I believe he's on the verge of being indicted for all the horrible things he did during Russiagate. Yeah, Joe McCarthy was right. They should have listened to him back then, not destroyed him. Check this out. If Joe McCarthy had his way, I don't think this ever would have happened.
Have you ever worked for a foreign government or for an organization dedicated to the subversion or the overthrow of the U.S. government? I thought for a moment. Nothing came to mind, and I was about to respond in the negative when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my God, I said to myself, as I remembered my vote in the 1976 presidential election.
So that's his book, his autobiography. He's blabbing too much, as usual for Brennan.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.